Published, 4:51 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 12th of July 2018. Updated, 5:25 Eastern Daylight Saving Time, the 12th of July 2018. Britain is bracing itself for Donald Trump today as he is given the red carpet treatment and meets the Prime Minister and Queen in a three-day visit orchestrated to help him avoid mass protests. The U.S. president, who is in Brussels after giving NATO leaders a bruising, will land at Stansted Airport with First Lady Melania this afternoon for the start of his controversial trip. Up to 10,000 police officers have been drafted in to protect him from the threat of mass protests and terror attack when he visits the UK today for 3 days. Protesters will follow him to Blenheim Palace, Chequers, Windsor Castle, the U.S. ambassador's official residence in Regent's Park, London, and his golf course in Scotland, so there will be large numbers of officers guarding each site. And London Mayor Sadiq Khan has allowed a group to fly a giant balloon showing Mr. Trump as a baby in a nappy over the capital throughout his visit. Donald Trump met up with Theresa May in Brussels yesterday and is heading to the UK for 3 days for an extraordinary and controversial visit. Buckingham Palace announced that the monarch will meet the US President and First Lady Melania Trump for tea at Windsor. Right, nearly every force in England and Wales has contributed officers to help with the massive mobilization, the biggest since the 2011 riots. Donald will be accompanied on the trip with Melania, pictured together yesterday, and the First Lady will be given a tour of London and attend a charity event. The US President will be accompanied by as many as 1,000 of his own staff, a motorcade led by his bomb-proof Cadillac nicknamed the Beast, and multiple helicopters during his UK trip. He arrives after giving NATO leaders a tongue-lashing in Brussels over defense spending and controversial comments about Britain being in turmoil. He said he got along with Theresa May very well, but suggested he might make time during his UK visit to speak with his friend Boris Johnson, who has just rocked her government by resigning as Foreign Secretary. It was up to the people whether or not they want Mrs. May to stay as Prime Minister, he added. Although it is not an official state visit, he will be treated to a guard of honor when he meets the Queen at Windsor Castle for tea and many of the traditions that accompany one. The arrangements have been carefully designed to ensure that the U.S. leader feels he is being treated with the appropriate level of pomp and ceremony. The tight security surrounding the visit will attempt to avoid exposing Mr. Trump to planned protests in central London. His schedule involves a black-tie dinner at Blenheim Palace tonight, with US and UK business leaders and cabinet ministers, hosted by Mrs. May. Ahead of his arrival, the PM said she would use the visit to forge a strengthened, ambitious and future-proof trade partnership with the US after Brexit. Trump will also be treated to a guard of honor at the monarch's Berkshire residence in Windsor. 2 Boeing C-17 Globe-masted U.S. Air Force planes delivered part of the presidential motorcade at Prestwick Airport, South Ayrshire, ahead of the visit of U.S. President Donald Trump. Severe black Secret Service 4x4s took to the road with a police escort as part of the huge security operation. The president's motorcade, including enormous 4x4 vehicles, is pictured on the tarmac at Prestwick. Mrs. May said there is no stronger alliance than the special relationship between the two countries, and there will be no alliance more important in the years ahead, hailing the two countries' uniquely close partnership in the fight for democracy and global security. She also pointed to our unrivaled trade and investment relationship. She added, "This week we have an opportunity to deepen this unique trading relationship and begin discussions about how we will forge a strengthened, ambitious and future-proof trade partnership." Yesterday, Buckingham Palace announced details of the president's meeting with Her Majesty. The monarch will meet the American leader and First Lady Melania at a specially erected dais in the quadrangle of the historic Berkshire royal residence on Friday afternoon. A guard of honor, formed of the Coldstream Guards, will give a royal salute and the U.S. national anthem will be played. The Queen and Mr. Trump will then inspect the guard of honor together, before watching a military march past. The 1st Battalion Coldstream Guards is one of the British Army's longest-serving units. As well as an operational role, they also undertake a ceremonial role as the Queen's Guard, protecting the royal palaces. Afterwards, Mr. and Mrs. Trump will join the Queen for tea at the castle in her private apartments. Given the opulence of their own residences, they are likely to marvel at the surprisingly frugal life the British sovereign leads. No other members of the royal family will be involved in Friday's visit, something of a surprise compared to the welcome other major political leaders have received. Tomorrow morning Mr. Trump and Mrs. May will view a mock counter-terror exercise involving special forces units from both countries. The joint exercise, at a secret military location, will involve the demonstration of high-tech equipment used by the SAS and their U.S. counterparts in joint operations. The two leaders will also meet U.S. officer cadets who are embedded with the UK military for part of their training. Separately, Melania Trump and Philip May are due to meet military veterans and schoolchildren at an undisclosed location. Among the firms attending are representatives of Diageo, the drinks company, McLaren and Arupin from the U.S. Blackstone Group and BlackRock Asset Management. After the Special Forces exercise tomorrow, the two leaders will travel to Chequers for the summit, which will also be attended by Jeremy Hunt, the Foreign Secretary. On the agenda will be Russia, trade, Brexit and the Middle East. After tea with the Queen, the President and his entourage will leave for Scotland, where he is expected to stay on one of his 2 golf courses. One of the biggest ever police operations will be staged to cover Mr. Trump's brief stay in the UK. Nearly every force in England and Wales has contributed officers to help with the massive mobilization, the biggest since the 2011 riots. Thousands of officers will be on duty to cover the visit, during which President Trump is expected to visit locations including Blenheim Palace, Chequers, Windsor Castle, the U.S. Ambassador's official residence in Regent's Park, London, and Scotland. He arrives after giving NATO leaders a tongue-lashing in Brussels over defense spending and controversial comments about Britain being in turmoil, as Theresa May's Brexit vision failed to convince all of her party. Mr. Trump pictured right in Brussels yesterday, said Boris Johnson, pictured left leaving his London home yesterday, was a friend, and suggested he could meet up with him in the UK. When the Queen meets Mr. Trump on Friday, he will be the 12th U.S. president she has met out of a possible 13, as she didn't meet President Johnson. Yesterday, the Mail revealed how Americans in Britain have been warned to keep a low profile, amid fears of violent demonstrations during the visit. In an extraordinary alert, the U.S. Embassy urged its citizens to be on their guard around large gatherings that may become violent while the president is in the UK. The unprecedented warning was issued as businesses were told to prepare for protests. They are expected to be the biggest since the Iraq War, and organizers claim they could involve hundreds of thousands of people. The Queen has received 3 other U.S. presidents at Windsor Castle since the 1980s, Barack Obama in 2016, George W. Bush in 2008, and Ronald Reagan in 1982. Buckingham Palace has not confirmed how the Trumps will arrive, but it is expected that they will come by helicopter in order to avoid any potential protests on the ground, landing the castle's grounds and being driven by car to meet the monarch. Donald Trump's bomb-proof limo has been designed to survive a military-style or chemical warfare attack. Donald Trump will be accompanied by as many as 1,000 staff, a motorcade and multiple helicopters during his UK trip. Here is what the presidential entourage is made up of. Air Force One. The U.S. leader will emerge from Air Force One, one of 2 specially modified Boeing 747-200s. The luxurious aircraft, carrying the tail codes 28,000 and 29,000, are highly customized and can act as a mobile command center in the event of an attack on the United States. The words, United States of America, the seal of the President of the United States and the American flag are all visible on the outside of the plane, making it instantly recognizable. The aircraft has 4,000 square feet of floor space, including a presidential suite with a large office and conference room, a medical suite that can be used as an operating room, and 2 food preparation galleys that can feed 100 people at a time. Overseas trips see additional staff and security flown over on an Air Force C-32, which is a modified Boeing 757, the Beast. The presidential motorcade, which includes 2 identical limousines, nicknamed the Beast, and other security and communications vehicles, is brought across by Air Force transport aircraft. The Beast is a 7-seat black armored limousine which reportedly costs $2 million (£1.5 million), and is designed to give Mr. Trump the ultimate protection. It can be turned into a sealed panic room with oxygen tanks, night vision camera and reinforced steel plating said to be able to resist bullets, chemical attacks and bombs. The Cadillac has Kevlar reinforced tires and steel rims that can keep the vehicle moving even if the tires have been destroyed. Bottles of the president's blood type are carried on board in case of a medical emergency, and a satellite phone enables communication to be maintained from anywhere in the world. As well as being able to defend the president, the car also features a host of attacking capabilities, such as a pump-action shotgun and a tear gas cannon. Marine owns a number of presidential helicopters, either VH-3D Sea Kings or VH-60N White Hawks, which are known as Marine One when the president is on board, are also brought on overseas trips. The Marine One helicopter is fitted with communications equipment, anti-missile defenses and hardened hulls. Staff and security personnel are ferried around in MV-22 Ospreys and CH-46s. Staff typically involved in an overseas trip include Secret Service post standers, military communications specialists and White House aides. The president has at his side at all times a White House doctor and one of 5 rotating military aides who carry the nuclear football equipped with communication tools and a book with prepared war plans. There is always a group of 13 members of the press on such visits, including 3 wire reporters, 2 print reporters, 4 photographers, a 3-person television crew, and a radio reporter.